I want to go straight to Washington to talk to Annelise Nielsen, Sky News' U.S. correspondent, about the news of the indictment against Donald Trump. Donald Trump has released a statement over this, which I'm going to read to you here. He says, "These thugs and radical left monsters have just indicted the 45th president of the United States of America and the leading Republican candidate by far for the 2024 nomination for president. This is an attack on our country, the likes of which has never been seen before. It is likewise a continuing attack on our once free and fair elections. The USA is now a third world nation, a nation in serious decline." So sad. That's Donald Trump responding to news from the indictment that's come down hours ago in New York City. Annelise Nielsen joins me live from Washington here. Annelise, what is the latest news on these indictments?
Look, the latest we've heard is that Trump's lawyers have been informed about the indictment pending and that there will be negotiations around his attendance in court in New York. Now, this is what everyone's waiting for. He'll have to have his fingerprints taken, mugshot taken, and be formally arraigned in court. And that's when he'll find out the exact charges. Right now, there's a lot of speculation around what it would be in relation to this $130,000 hush payment, but no one actually knows, bar the jurors in the room. So there's still questions to be asked about what happens after that. Is he going to be taken into custody? Highly unlikely, especially considering the security concerns that will go with the president attending court. This is pretty unprecedented. So there's not going to be any kind of blueprint for them to follow for something like this. But he will still have to have Secret Service with him, and that's normal for any former president of the United States. So it's likely the whole block will be shut down. There won't be normal access to the court. They'll still have to allow journalists, though. And New York is an interesting state. They don't allow video feeds in the court there. There's been cases around it, and it's never been quite comfortably settled. But it's not like other states in America where you see the live stream coming out.
And Annelise, tell us, I mean, I know we haven't seen the indictment unsealed yet, and we probably won't see that until next week sometime, but what is the leading theory about the nature of the charges?
The leading theory is that he's going to be done for rules around how it was recorded in internal business documents, that it wasn't declared as being campaign related. And so in that, he can either have breached financial regulations or he can have breached campaign rules. Either scenario isn't necessarily the worst thing he's been accused of, certainly with the other cases that are pending, potentially facing trial in Georgia around his call to officials there to ask them to find 11,000 votes or thereabouts, when it was discovered he was keeping highly classified confidential documents at Mar-a-Lago. That carries much more serious charges at federal levels as well. And remember, this is a state level as well. The peculiarity there is if he becomes president again, he couldn't clear himself of that conviction, but it certainly doesn't bar him from running again unless something changes. Right now, the only thing that could have stopped him would have been being convicted in his impeachment trials if it had passed through the Senate in either instance, or the only other restriction on running for president is your age. So, I mean, theoretically, yes, you can run a campaign from a prison cell.
That'd be quite something to see, Annelise. So, I mean, Joe Biden ran his campaign from the basement, so stranger things have happened. What, though, is the political reaction, though? We've seen, obviously, what Donald Trump has had to say about this, and he's very annoyed about it. He's called it a third world sort of behavior. What are other politicians, other political leaders saying about this on both the left and the right?
Well, look, Republicans are coming to his defense. Even those who might be ready to move on from the Trump years, supported him, didn't support how he left office, January 6th, all that. They still don't want to see him pursued like this because it does show weaponization of the legal system. It does show that things are getting increasingly divided when America is coming together again after the pandemic in a way that's much better than it's been in the last few years. There hasn't been the same kind of heated rhetoric, protests, riots. Things have been edging towards normal, if not the dreaded malaise. But what we also see from the Democrats is they're not necessarily whooping down the streets around this either. This isn't a good look to be pursuing kind of really weak charges on something like the campaign financing. While they might enjoy it, they don't like Trump, so couldn't happen to a nicer person in their perspective. It doesn't really help them either. It just makes them look like they're holding grudges.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because as you say, Annelise, there are much more serious charges floating around Donald Trump, and you would think that the more strategic Democrats would much rather wait to see how those pan out. Do we know anything about what the White House is saying about this, and whether or not the White House has had any contact with that district attorney's office in New York?
The White House has been pretty specific, saying that they haven't been involved. They haven't really made any public statements yet. It's quite late in the day here, and the White House press briefing's already happened. They're probably trying to figure out exactly how to approach this. The reporting was that Democrat figures in New York were trying to put pressure on the DA to not pursue this, because it looked like if they went ahead with an indictment and it failed, it was going to look all the worse for them. And they're giving him a huge platform right now. He's raised a ton of money. Fox Digital was reporting $1.5 million in donations in the 3 days after he announced he was going to be arrested, which didn't happen. You can imagine now that he is going to be arrested, it's going to be wall-to-wall news coverage, and people around the country will be donating. His Truth Social pages have had donation links running constantly, where he's asking people if they can afford it to put money in, and it seems like they are. And remember, we said this when he was running again, this makes it a lot harder to pursue someone for charges like this if he's a candidate. And it seems like that's just exactly what's come to pass.